Hi, and welcome to our online pledge drive here at TPR. I'm joined by reporter Maria Mendez and Reynaldo Llanos Jr. Let me introduce you to Maria Mendez. She reports for Texas Public Radio from the city of Laredo, where she covers business and border issues from an area that is now on top of everyone's mind. Her position is made possible by Report for America, a nonprofit national service program that places journalists in local newsrooms to report on covered areas. Ray is an award-winning immigration and border reporter with Texas Public Radio. He's based in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. And while TPR, he's been doing some amazing work. He's been picked up by national NPR shows like Morning Edition, All Things Considered. And he focuses most of his reporting on immigration, and with an amazing concentration and work that he's been doing over at the other side of the border, covering the migrant camps. So I want to welcome you both to our conversation, and thank you for all of your hard work. I've had the honor and opportunity to be working with Ray and Maria and a lot of their reporting and stories. So I just want to introduce you guys. And first, my first question, I guess, would be, what made you want to start reporting here? Ray, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I grew up, in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. I was born and raised down here. And I started off as a freelancer down here for a while, kind of dabbling into immigration stories and stuff. And it kind of just happened, and I just started reporting on immigration. And then I went away to grad school for a while in New York. But then I saw that there was like a job, like, there was a opportunity down here with Texas Public Radio to be based, in the Valley and to report on immigration. So I really wanted to just move back home, and be able to continue reporting on immigration and just being back home in my community, continuing to learn about it and the issues that were going on. Because I remember being in New York in 2018 when family separation was happening. I was interning, and I would just remember, like that this was going on, in my community where I grew up, and I wasn't able to cover that. And I was just, I missed being home at that time. So for me, I really wanted to come back and like continue reporting on some of these issues, So yeah, it was important for me to go back for that reason.
That's great. And what a time to be back.
Oh yeah.
Maria, what brought you to this area? You are originally from Guanajuato, and we'll get to that really interesting and beautiful part of your story, becoming a new citizen later. But tell us a little bit about that journey and what it is to be reporting from Laredo.
Yeah, so I am originally from Mexico. I was born there, but I moved to the States when I was 3 years old, and I basically have lived most of my life, all of my life, in Central Texas in Austin. And so when I saw this opportunity to come here to Laredo, I was really intrigued because for a while now I've been wanting to kind of travel back closer to home. Even though I consider Austin my home, I want to, reconnect with my home country and learn more about, the interesting and ever-evolving relationship between the U.S. and Mexico, and especially here in Texas. And so that's really what drew my attention to the position. And so that's why I decided to, make the leap of moving down here to Laredo, even though I didn't know anybody and had never been here. I think I've gone to the Valley before, but not to this part of South Texas. And so it's been a really fun and interesting experience to, finally be closer to Mexico, although we can't travel as much these days, but learn so much about, the interesting dynamics of border communities.
Right, right. And let me just pause there for a minute and introduce myself. I'm a senior editor with the Texas Newsroom. And for everyone that is, I guess, getting familiarized with what we do here in Texas, the Texas Newsroom is a collaborative hub with Texas stations in the state, and we function as a newsroom with a lot of reporters and local stations. I am a native from Juarez and studied my entire life in El Paso. I'm a cliche, I would say, border commuter. And I just moved actually here to San Antonio 6 months before this pandemic happened from New York. I was there for 10 years. Previously, I was with Reveal, the Center for Investigative Reporting, and then moved into Latino USA. So what we do is I work with reporters, I edit their stories, we talk, we go through pitches, we just try to figure this world out and see how we can fix it one story at a time, right? But anyway, I want to talk to you guys about the great work that you have been doing. We are in a very interesting year, not only in what is immigration, but you really add what's happening with the pandemic, and things just become a lot more, I would say, existential. A lot of the problems go into this different dimension. So, Ray, can you talk about, what is the story that has really really, in a way, impacted you as a human being, but also the community that you report on, this past year?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's that's a big question.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say, a lot of the stuff that I think I'm really most proud of, is being able to report on, immigration and specifically like asylum seekers, in um, mostly in Matamoros, which is right across the Rio Grande from Brownsville. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's been interesting, right? I mean, I've as a reporter on the border, reporting on both sides and seeing how the pandemic, affects communities. I've been following, this community of asylum seekers in Matamoros since last year, really since a program, went into effect and stuff. And it's uh, seeing how they've been dealing with the pandemic, and kind of, organizing together, to keep each other safe and working with community organizations, and stuff like that to keep each other safe, prevent, COVID from coming into a migrant camp where, several hundred people are living and waiting to seek asylum in the US. I am always really proud to tell, those stories because of the reason that I'm based here, and I'm able to talk to them on a frequent basis, so keeping in touch with them and helping tell, the story and documenting really this part of history that we're living in,
Right.
so I don't know, that's one of the stories that I'm most proud of, of being able to have the opportunity to tell.
Mhm. And needless to say, I would say also that your reporting has been constant, has been on point, has been, impactful. When we talk about covering, the migrant community, specifically the asylum seekers, the refugees that are in Matamoros, in a way, you see a lot of reporters come in, come out, what we say, call in the industry, parachuting in. But Ray, you have really stayed there. You've created amazing sources, and there's no reporting out there that really even compares to the things that you've been putting out. So thank you, for just never shining away, and continuing follow up has been one of a great characteristic that you have as a journalist, is that you're really good follow up, and with with sources, with reporting, but overall, I mean, it's been great. Maria, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing. You're relatively new here with us at TPR. How long have you been reporting now?
Since June.
Since June, okay. But you've done great work. A lot of it is focused on the trading in Laredo. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've dabbled on lots of different things. I've also covered a little bit of the coronavirus hotspot that caused a lot of issues here in Laredo, but my focus has been trade and how that's kind of been impacted by the pandemic, and more specifically the restrictions that we're seeing at the border, where Mexican shoppers and tourists and anybody who's not necessarily crossing for something that's deemed essential, which some of the few things that are deemed essential are like supposed to be like school, public health workers or diplomats, they can cross over, but pretty much everybody else, has these restrictions where they can't come over. And border communities like Laredo have been really impacted because businesses rely on Mexican shoppers and tourists and that, everyday travel. And, families too, families travel back and forth for school or for different reasons. And so, I think that's been something that officials have been struggling to navigate, with, for example, when we have seen some spikes in COVID-19 cases. But, as we head into the fall shopping season, they're starting to push again for trying to open up bridges fully in a way with more screening and precautions.
Right, right. And specifically, going back to the time that we're living in, how's it been like reporting in your area during a pandemic? Maria, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so it's been interesting to move into a completely new city and try to form a community and build sources. And so I've had to like be creative in some ways. And so what a big thing for me has been, really pushing myself out on social media and Twitter to try to get to know the people who are on social media. And I think that has been beneficial because some of these folks, regularly reach out to me to tell me about like community events, or I like regularly reach out to them and ask them questions about, is this a common thing in Laredo? But I also have been, careful when I do go out, and I do try to go out to protest or when there are community events, of course, using a mask and protective gear. And I've been fortunate that our newsroom has supplied us with special equipment. We have these longer boom mics, or I think y'all like to call them escoba mics because they're kind of long. But basically, we've invested, the newsroom has invested in gear for us to still be able to go out and report the news where it's happening, but in a way that's safe, both for us and so that we also don't necessarily become a risk for the community.
Right. And on your end, Ray, how's it been like to be out there reporting during this time?
Yeah, so I mean, I've really like limited like how much time I go out or like when I go out and stuff. But like Maria is saying, like if I do have to go out, like I'll take extra precaution, like she said, mask, the long mic, and just trying to social distance and just being aware. But also, I mean, one thing that I've done is like especially with some of my sources at the migrant camp or other asylum seekers or migrants, I talk with them through WhatsApp, so we communicate a lot through that way. So, and the audio is actually really good through WhatsApp. So I use some of that audio from there, and also trying to gather scenes, like especially like working with you, especially, like I've really learned how to gather scenes and to get better at doing that, and being able to, work with whoever we're talking to see, if we're not able to physically be with them, how do we, how do we work with them to help get, some of the sounds that are around them and stuff like that. For example, like we did a story about the RGV, and we followed around the Hidalgo County Health Authority, and he was able to help, get some sound for us because we weren't able to physically be there. And so that was an interesting way to tell a story. So it's been, I mean, we've had to just be really creative, but it's also, I think, been helpful. And I think these are tools and skills that we can use, even after, the pandemic and stuff.
Right, right. And I think it also highlights your connection with your sources, right? It's a testament that when it comes to reporting, it takes time to talk to folks. It takes time to establish that relationship to the extent that they are okay sending you really intimate clips of their daily lives. So it also goes back to, what you all do. Not only does it reflect on, there's a script, there's your story on there, but the amount of work that took to get to those 4-minute, 7-minute stories is pretty impressive. Maria, how's it been talking to folks? We're just editing a story right now. We're working on we just wrapped it up. We finished your reporting on a border wall, the story on how the border wall is influencing the Latino vote, and you were able to really go in and have a lot of conversations with Trump supporters in what they call a Trump train, which was really interesting over in Laredo. So being around, talking to folks, you're not only, there's the pandemic happening, but there's also this moment in history where it feels a little bit, tension in regards to politics. So how's it been for you to talk to these people that are not only out there but pretty passionate about about where they are in politics?
Yeah, I've made the effort to try to go out and talk to people on all sides of the political spectrum and see what they're thinking and how they're feeling ahead of the elections, which, like you said, are pretty historic. And, in Laredo, they have even more significance because, the current administration, the Trump administration, has been pushing for a border wall here for, more than a year. And some residents have been fighting against that. But as you said, Laredo did have a really big Trump train, which is basically a car caravan where Trump supporters, get their cars all decorated with flags and stuff, and they basically had a parade throughout the city. And I was able to go and talk to a few different voters there, and it was really interesting to see how some of them, the border wall is a big issue and a big priority, and it's a big reason that they're going to head out to the polls. But for some other voters, that's not necessarily top of mind, and they're kind of having to negotiate, that issue with some of their more pressing concerns. For example, I talked to a few Republican voters who say, they're just tired of the Democratic stronghold here because Laredo has historically been, mostly Democrat. And so it's been interesting to see kind of this shift that may or may not happen. We'll just have to wait until the elections to see.
Right, right. And Ray, over in the Rio Grande Valley, we're also working on this story together, how the feeling, the sentiment with Democrats, although it's predominantly quite blue there is a little bit of that tension with the progressive vote. and you've been able to talk to voters, Latino voters that have some strong feelings about this, right?
Yeah, I mean, just today, I talked to somebody who identifies as a democratic socialist, and he was expressing to me that, like, yes, the Rio Grande Valley is a highly democratic area. They vote Democrat, but he's actually very upset, with the Democratic Party because he feels that, the community down here, and kind of in general, sometimes also, they don't get paid attention to, or that they feel candidates don't invest, in talking to them or to, like, what he said was like earn their vote, you know. And it was so interesting talking to him because one of the things that he expressed to me was that he actually, despite like everything that's going on, having to choose between President Trump and Biden, that he's actually going to be voting for the candidate under the Green Party. Um, and I thought that was really interesting. I haven't heard too much of that, but he was expressing to me why, he was doing that. And I'm looking forward, to talking to him, throughout the week and stuff to just learn a little bit more about that. Because he also expressed that, like, his mom is going to be voting for Biden, and she doesn't understand his rationale for voting for somebody in the Green Party, and so there's just so much more to like unpack there, and it's been interesting also throughout the year to see how there has been a progressive movement and a progressive people getting together to support progressive candidates, versus like establishment Democrats and stuff. So politically, like down here, it's been very interesting, and I can't wait to continue talking to more people about this because it's so layered,
Yes.
and yeah, I'm just looking forward to chatting with more people.
And that's something that the Texas Newsroom is trying to do. We have a series called Unpacking the Latino Vote, Unlocking the Latino Vote, because we felt as a newsroom that we wanted to explain and really point to the nuance of the Latino vote. We're not monolithic. Latinos are very complex, and I feel like the Latino voting bloc is very important. Obviously, we know that, but TPR, the Texas Newsroom, and other Texas stations, we really are hoping to at least try to show a complete picture, and these are the nuances that we're hoping to capture. So these characters are just great, and it's part of the reporting process to talk to everyone and show the reality of things. And before we leave, I wanted to talk to you guys and see where you are with this topic specifically. Why is it important for the listener to donate and contribute to TPR? Because the amount of reporting, the amount of work that goes to your stories is pretty impressive. You guys are working nonstop, and that for me is priceless. But if we should be putting a prize, and I think that we're asking the listeners to know and to recognize that there's a lot that you guys do behind the scenes. So why is it important for you, Maria, that people donate to TPR?
I think it's important for people to donate to TPR because TPR is making a concerted effort to, expand its coverage, and in areas like South Texas, like the Valley and Laredo. I'm the first Laredo reporter, and my position is partially grant funded, but I would love to stay here and continue getting to know this community and telling the stories, of this border community, of how the pandemic is affecting them, of how voters are feeling, and whether or not there is a shift there happening here. And another really big thing is that, while I'm here and I try to share my stories online and with the community that I've been trying to communicate with and grow with, we don't have a station here, but, I would hope that one day we would have a frequency or a station or a bigger presence here, because it is a lot of work. And, a lot of times I want to cover all the stories that are happening, all the local news, but, I'm only one person. And so it would be really helpful if people, donated so we can continue expanding in this area.
Right. And on that note, you're highlighted something very important, which is representation, right? With not only our coverage, but for people and community members to know that there is reporting done in their area. A lot of the issues tend to, unfortunately, as journalists, we and media organizations, we're in a great fault when we don't necessarily have people reporting on certain areas that really need to look we need to look into. So with that, you're right, Maria. It is truly necessary to keep you down there, to keep your reporting, but also to really have a true impact as far as the amount of stories that you're doing, and what is the ripple effect of those stories in the community. So thank you. And Ray, tell us why people should donate to TPR.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like anything and everything that like goes to TPR is like extremely like helpful to the station. I mean, just like Maria was saying, I mean, my position down here is like a testament to that, you know. TPR, found it important, to create, a position, that covers the border and immigration, but found it also important to be based down here on the border, like actually on the border. Who would have thought, like because there's other people, there's other places where it's hard to do that, because prior to my position like being, a thing, it was hard to tell stories from down here because the closest station was San Antonio. That's like 4.5, 4 hours from the border from down here where I live. So it's been such a good investment, for TPR and for just like the stations in Texas in general, because we're able to, like Maria was saying, bring news, from down here and stuff. So I mean, people's donations, to TPR are already a testament that, the money is going to help bring, more of these stories from these communities down here. And also, I mean, there's efforts, like Maria was saying, to expand the newsroom. There's also efforts, to bring more stories like in Spanish, as well, to be able to reach more people. So the job, at TPR is not done yet, and as we continue to grow and explore like new ways we can better help our community, everything and anything helps. It also goes towards like equipment, keeping reporters safe, during the pandemic, traveling for stories if we need to. So, I mean, honestly, like a lot of the money and stuff is really, really helpful for not just us, but just like, to keep, telling, these stories so that people know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And the impact that your work has in the community, right? Um, for example, people, congressmen, representatives using your reporting on, congressional hearings that perhaps potentially could change the law that affects people down there, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's been for me. I've been really proud of that. I've been able to have some of my stories on, specifically what's known as like the Remain in Mexico policy (MPP). I've had some of my stories cited in congressional testimony, or in lawsuits, against the Department of Homeland Security and stuff. So, by people investing, in TPR, has helped me, tell these stories, which essentially have gone, to the Hall of Congress and like other places, as cited about what's going on, in the country right now, against, policies that are being like debated and discussed right now. So, it's just like there's so much like there, that people's donations really, really do help and have impact as well afterwards.
Right. And as far as journalism, that is the gold standard, right? Create that sort of impact. So, well, thank you both for your conversation. And let's just invite folks out there for their pledge. It goes a long way, as Ray would say. Anything or everything is always welcome. And we will, honor your donation by doing the best journalism that we can produce. So thank you all, and let's talk to you soon. Thank you.
Talk soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.